Okay, so today is a weird one. We're going to talk about how VHS is not an asymmetrical horror game that's similar to DVD, like many of us thought. After the Deathwire reveal yesterday, I had The Running Man stuck in my head all day. It's a story about a game show from the year 2017 where runners are set up against stalkers to fight for their lives. The stalkers would be kitted out with weapons and specialized arenas where the groups of runners could only run due to a lack of gear and a means to fight back. Does that sound familiar? The video we're going to talk about today completely changed how I look at VHS, and it's going to influence my critiques and videos in the future. And I hope that after the devs have watched it, that they've had their eyes opened as much as I have.
Space Coconut.
Now, a few days ago, Jay shared a video about the monster experience in VHS by Solomon. In that video, Solomon had the thought that VHS wasn't actually an asymmetrical game as we've come to understand it from our experiences with Dead by Daylight, but rather a deathmatch game where only one side can be left standing at the end of a match. Once the lens shifted to look at the game that way, much of the frustration with the problems that players have had with the game were made much more apparent to me, and it highlighted how my past criticisms of players with those issues were very misplaced. In The Running Man, once Ben Richards begins to win against the unbeatable stalkers, the audience at first is frustrated and they're booing him because their favorite stalker has just been slain, and no runner had ever defeated a stalker before. They were in shock because the game they were used to seeing had an outcome that no one had ever thought possible. As the movie went on, they adjusted to what they were seeing and what they found joy in. Rather than seeing the stalkers win against the runners and cheering for it, they wanted to see if Ben could actually defeat the stalkers against insurmountable odds. In the same way, if we as players and the devs both change how we perceive VHS as a game, we might be in a better position to solve its problems. We're constantly saying that VHS isn't Dead by Daylight, so we, even myself, need to stop thinking about the game as if it's a close relative, but rather a distant cousin instead. At this point, I highly suggest that you watch Solomon's entire video, but if you don't have the patience for that, watch the quick recap at the end. The timestamps are in his video's description, and the link to his video is in the description of this one. In it, Solomon goes over a few of the primary issues that contribute to the negative monster experience and explains why they're misplaced once we put VHS in the deathmatch category of gaming. I'm going to expound on some of those ideas here. VHS is labeled as a 4v1 asymmetrical game, and players who want to play the monster role expect to play the power role. I've explained before that this role changes between the players during the course of the match. Teens with weapons are the power role, and the monsters are the power role when the teens don't have weapons. But think about it this way. If the power role between the roles shifts once teens gain weapons, what if their weaknesses did also? Solomon mentions this when talking about giving teens with weapons a terror loop, but maybe a more elegant solution would be to give the weapon a distinct hum depending on the weapon type. The Holy Slingshot, as an example, has a warning noise when the teen is preparing to fire it and simply holds the shot. The monster is aware of the threat because of the sound it makes and will react accordingly. This exact situation plays out when an unarmed teen hears the terror loop of the monster. The teen will go and hide, they'll stop crafting, they'll do any number of things to avoid being detected. With the Holy Slingshot example, once the monster knows the slingshot is there and they decide to push without a defensive ability, they will rely on cover and movement to avoid getting hit by the shot. These moments make up the majority of fun, entertaining, and interactive moments between the monster and teen players. Now, compare any slingshot play with a play involving a cross, staff, sword, enigma, or flamethrower. The majority of those plays will consist of a teen hiding and popping up to zap the monster in the face with their beam weapon of choice. How entertaining are those moments compared to the slingshot and firebomb plays that you've seen on TikTok or any Twitch clip? How about watching a teen 360 a monster to have it whiff and then claim the stigma? How about watching a monster move around a group of armed teens managing to find an opening to score a hit without waiting for or relying on its defensive ability out of necessity? There are instances of high-skill gameplay apparent in the game right now. However, much of that is hidden behind the allure of easy ambushes and cooldown camping, leading to the frustrations of boring and unfair-feeling gameplay that players talk about right now. So, if VHS is a deathmatch game and not a traditional ASIM game, what could the devs do to shift the game to fit that idea and possibly improve the game for everyone? A better question is that even possible? Asking the devs at this point to look at the vision they had for their game as an asymmetrical entry and look at it through a deathmatch lens is much like asking an artist to change their painting of a sunset to one of a forest fire. The colors are similar, but the feel of the painting changes a great deal. In a previous video, I couldn't voice what was wrong with the monster experience, but I knew that changing it could amount to asking the devs to change their vision for the game. The question is that possible, or would they be willing to do that? Solomon clearly isolated a few of the problems, and I believe that the majority of players hadn't considered the angle Solomon took for them. Of course, whatever changes happen won't please everyone. Solomon mentions how players feel certain weapons are weaker than others, and I want you to imagine that your favorite weapon becomes slightly weaker. Maybe the copter discharges energy while firing faster, or the sword has less swings available. I'm not sure what will happen or how much of Solomon's feedback the devs will take to heart, but one thing is certain. This is the most clear feedback about the monster experience that the community has seen. We've all felt it and we've all talked about it to some degree, but Solomon was able to put it into words, and many players have rallied behind those statements. While it's too late for any suggestions to make it to the next update with Reggie and Deathwire, it will be interesting to see what happens with Video Horror Society after that. Whatever changes are announced, I'll be comparing them to Solomon's suggestions and observations to see what the devs ended up deciding to do with his suggestions. Once again, I find myself optimistic about this, especially because Chris himself responded to the video positively. Only time will tell for sure though. So, in the meantime, make sure you watch Solomon's video. It's really, really good. For now, I got nothing else, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.